Mirror's Edge was released in 2007 by EA and DICE to mostly positive reviews. It was a decent enough hit that grew sort of a cult following, likely due to it being unique in the genre. After a few years, no one really expected a sequel. Then it was announced 8 years later, and Mirror's Edge Catalyst was to be the open-world follow-up. If you haven't seen our top games list, I'm a big fan of the first Mirror's Edge. The single player was kinda odd, and the combat sucked, and the story was a bit uninspired, but the running was great. It had a wonderful aesthetic, and some of the best time trials I've ever played in a game. The mechanics and level design built for this wonderful competition between me and a good friend. Mirror's Edge 2 is a big open world with a lot of side missions and small trials and collectibles, and is also kind of a mess. Some things are improved, some things are not. I think a lot of it is centered around its open worldness. Collectibles, side missions, and random encounters now litter the rooftops as you ignore important pressing story missions to instead hack billboards. Alright, let's play the... To this day, I'm still not sure if making it open world was a good idea. Unlike most open world games, you're stuck entirely on rooftops, cutting through hallways, walking on tightropes, or jumping from building to building. It's pretty free and fun at first, traversing these rooftops of jungle gym equipment, but with how it's set up, there are some frustrations that never go away. With always being on top of a large building, there's this constant concern of falling off that large building, and enjoying the loading screen. You will spend a lot of time looking at loading screens, something I'll touch more on later. The game doesn't give you a heads-up display, which I kind of like. It forces you to enjoy the skyline and environments, and maybe even create familiar routes to remember which you'll use to run from point to point of interest. But the map is not intuitive enough to avoid running into dead ends or just going the wrong direction. Runner's vision is a helpful way to avoid constantly checking the map, but then you're always just following the same route. There's no freedom, and you're just following this line. Admittedly, the collectibles do wonders for justifying its open world change. They remind me of Crackdown or Saints Row 4, where you're constantly distracted by trying to figure out how to get a collectible. There are a bunch of different types, but I think the grid leaks are the best one. I mean, none of them really make sense if you think about it, but in a game sense, it's nice to have a collectible that you can see from a distance and don't slow you down when you pick it up. The electronic parts are fine, but if you see one in the distance, you don't really know if it's already been collected, and every single time you get another one, you see the same animation. Pull off the panel, pull out the chip, look at it, shove it up your butt. Every time it looks the same. Okay, yep, I get it. You're pulling it off. Yep, okay, pick it up, spin it. Oh, you're getting shot. Doesn't matter. Look at it, spin it, pull it off, spin it, pick it up, pull it off. It really stops the flow of things in a game about maintaining flow. Again, that's a really minor nitpick, because it's still just fun to collect shit, but still. If some collectibles are glowing, floating balls of data, I don't need framing for every single electronic chip. Why am I even taking these? Whatever. The time trials are back, now termed dashes. They are a worse implementation of the time trials in the first game. Like, I enjoy that there are a lot of them, but they're just not as good for a few reasons. Firstly, the time between mistake and retry is too long. Like I said before, there is a lot of loading. If you're close enough to the start, you'll go back without having to cut to a loading screen, but that's a rarity. And if you fall off a high enough ledge or fall off the building, it loads once to put you back at the ledge where you fell off. And if you want to retry and didn't hold the retry button early enough, you have to load a second time just so it'll put you back at the beginning. Secondly, you don't know where you're going. Yeah, you have some runner's vision to tell you where you're going, but in the first one, where you have massive beacons of light at multiple checkpoints, now there's just one flat circle where you have to end up. You don't know where it is from the beginning, and if you're trying to find the fastest route, it's difficult to tell where you're losing the most time. And yeah, I appreciate that it's not obvious what the fastest route is, as finding the best route and optimizing it was the best part of the trials in the first one, but now it's such a pain because all the buildings look kind of samey, and unless the run is incredibly straightforward, it's easy to get lost where you started and where you're going. And because it is just one checkpoint, the dashes themselves aren't as interesting. You're not looping around through the same area, you're just getting to this one point as fast as possible. And it's kind of difficult to do that because every single time you have to reevaluate the entire race. The movement itself feels more streamlined than in the first one, which is good and bad. They took out the small silly tricks for picking up and maintaining speed, like sidestepping to instantly get max speed, or constantly jumping and crouching to maintain that max speed. But then they also added stuff like vaulting over small ledges, which, I don't know, always felt like it slowed me down. They also took away core mechanics of moving in the first one to add this false sense of progression in the form of an upgrade tree. The upgrade tree in this game is the most unnecessary and annoying addition. There are arguably no new upgrades. The movement ones are all simple tricks or contextual tools. All the tricks are things you could do from the beginning of the first one, like quick turning from a wall, coiling your feet when you jump, or freaking rolling when you hit the ground. All the tools are so contextual that it's not an upgrade, it's just a key that unlocks a faster door. The hookshot in this game is lame because you can only do it in specific spots. Like, I get that it'd kind of break the game if it could be used anywhere at any time, but I don't know, Titanfall 2 had a way more satisfying hookshot. It just feels like an afterthought. And the idea of you having to arbitrarily unlock things that make it possible to make the game flow better is kinda stupid. It just feels cheap when the only way to 3-star a dash is through something you unlock later in the game. Upgrades in this game just simply don't belong and discourage even trying the dashes until you have everything. Another flavor of side content is the one-off dash missions, either from a machine that yells at you or from people that are just standing waiting for someone to come along and make their lives better. I hate these missions. Like the dashes, you have one place to get to, that one small circle on the ground. Unlike the dashes though, they are on the strictest time limit possible. And since it's a count down instead of a count up, you run out of time and don't get the opportunity to optimize your path. It's just trial and error with a fun loading screen between every attempt. Like, I don't think I'm bad at the game, but I've completed many of these with exactly 0 seconds left on the timer. And there's no reason for the time limit to be so short. Like, these people are just standing around, and they've been standing for days. What do you lose with 2 extra seconds? I mean, really. And there are some fragile delivery missions, or some where you're not supposed to be seen, but to my knowledge, that add-on is essentially non-existent. I'm already going as fast as I can on the only telegraphed route. It's not like I can change up how I make this run to avoid being spotted. There are other types of these smaller side missions, like one where you create a diversion so somebody else can do something, and then there's also actual side missions where the things you do kind of matter for people in the game, but they didn't really pique my interest either. As a short side note, the people in this game make the whole world seem dead. They're just people, standing around, doing nothing. It honestly reminds me of Tony Hawk Underground on the PlayStation 2, when there are just people standing, waiting to give you something to do. And for some reason, they always look like they're out of focus. I mean, the graphics in this game look pretty great within the cutscenes, the people look pretty realistic. But outside, I don't know, they're fuzzy and it's just so out of place. And they don't do anything. Some don't even have anything to say to you, they're just standing. And the ones that want you to do something are just so ungrateful. Like, asshole, I'm trying to stop corruption in this city, you can deliver this thing yourself.
Hey, you're a runner. We get it.
Also, the layout of everything just seems so weird. Like, yeah, okay, I get it, it's a futuristic city, but no buildings should ever look like this. Why is this what this room looks like? One time, a big server room is described to be built not for humans, but for machines to use.
Yeah, well, it wasn't designed with humans in mind. Pure machine space.
Which is kind of an explanation, but that's only some electronic rooms. I mean, other rooms are just, what? What is this room for? Why does it look like this? Combat is bad. It was pretty bad in the first one, but you could use the guns, and I kinda liked how awkward the gunplay was. It would be awkward for a runner in this universe to use a gun. But now you can't use a gun, and sometimes combat is unavoidable. Every combat event in this game boiled down to me running onto a wall, jumping off, and kicking somebody in the head. Just over and over and over. It's like they heard that combat was bad in the first one, and they were like, it's those pesky guns that are the problem. They even justify why Faith can't pick up a gun and shoot it in some of the loading screens that say they're like paired with its user, but that doesn't make combat any less of a chore. As for the story missions, I said before, I don't care too much for them, but when I actually paid attention to it, it was just a series of details that just don't add up. There are just so many decisions that seem off, things that really cut me out of the immersion. It seems like every mission was thought out in a game sense, but not in a realistic or consistent world sense. And yeah, you can try to tell a compelling story, but what doesn't make me invested is leaving out details of the setup. Telling me that I can get the backstory by reading a comic outside of the game makes me feel like the game came with an incomplete story. But here, let me throw out a bunch of examples of design choices I found weird. And I'm gonna be throwing out a bunch of spoilers, so if you're at all interested in the story this has to offer, just skip to the end. The game is called Mirror's Edge Catalyst, not Mirror's Edge 2. This game is a reboot, not a sequel, not a prequel. See, I was confused because the plot of the first one involves you saving your framed sister, and the plot of this one ends with you discovering that the daughter of one of the big evil corporations, Krugersek, is your sister. With a similar name too. I mean, in the first one it's Kate, and in Catalyst it's Caitlin, or Kat. But there's no way they're the same person. Catalyst ends with Kat being the CEO of Krugersek, and in the first one, Kate's just a police officer. If they're the same person, Kat's making a wild decision to get out of the corrupt business lifestyle and live a more tame life as an officer. I just don't see it. There's a mission where you're in this underground base and there are drones to be set up and infiltrate or destroy the resistance group in there. When you go and destroy them, they're all in boxes, conveniently resting next to endless pits where they're then pushed into and destroyed. Why are they there? Who decided it was a good spot to leave them there and not set them up? How did they even get all the way down there? Your mentor buddy, Noah, is thought to be dead, but then it's revealed he's in this place called the Greylands. And maybe this is just me not paying attention, but then you're told that he's not in the Greylands, but rather in a different place called the Kingdom. And the Kingdom is literally down under the underground base the Resistance is in. There's just one door that needs to be opened. What? How did they not notice that? You'd think the Resistance would want to make sure their base is like super secretive, but they're neighbors to this evil corporate layer of torture and prisoners, and neither the Resistance nor the corporation knew. When you figure out where the location of the Kingdom is, you break into some area of Krugersek and have your hacker buddy Plastic get the information for you. She says that if you make it in and out of there alive, you're a legend, which you do with no problems, of course. And then, when you need to invade the personal apartment of the CEO of Krugersek, Faith loses all hope and sulks about how it's impossible. A lot of the characters in this game are just flat and uninteresting. Your sidekick runner buddy Icarus is the stereotypical hotshot that thinks he's the best and that you're old news, but by the end learns to appreciate your skill and determination. The CEO of Krugersek himself could have had some interesting development because of his product. He makes this point that maybe some people do want their thoughts and emotions manipulated to make them happier, even if it forces them to pay into the power of big businesses. And then Faith punches him in the head. You keep telling these two people that you're definitely going to give them this blueprint of the product, and they keep saying, okay, I'll do this one last thing for you, but you definitely better give it to me, and then you never end up giving it to either of them, and they're like okay with it or something. Not all the characters are bad. I mean, I liked Plastic, but most of them just didn't strike me as interesting at all. The big climax of this game where you run and jump and move quickly is all vertical movement. I get that it's visually stunning, you climbing the tallest building in existence, careful not to fall down as stuff falls from above and glass is breaking from beneath, but it's so slow and directed. There's no sense of freedom or even skill. And when the entire game is on top of buildings where at any point you could fall and die, you're not really raising the stakes just by bringing me onto a higher building. There are a ton of other small details that just confuse me. I mean, how come you can disrupt some fans but not the other? Is pulling down walls really an upgrade if you can only do it in story missions? Why even have the walls there in the first place? You think after Faith stole a priceless blueprint from this company, she'd be high priority and that all the Krugersek police would know who she is and what she looks like, but they're all like, hey, it's a runner, stop her! Why is the only path through later parts of the city just like hidden jumps onto tiny ledges on the sides of buildings? Why does it look like I'm running through people's houses even though there's never anyone here doing anything? Why are all the doors and the windows wide open? You're living on top of a building, you'd think it'd get pretty chilly up here. You've killed so many people to get to the final room, why does the big boss think that just 2 people are enough to stop you? Why doesn't he just pull out a gun and shoot you right there? It probably sounds like I hated this game with all these minor nitpicks. I don't, but they really add up to a frustrating experience. I think this game could have been great if they put more thought into why they were setting stuff up the way they did. It just seems like a lot of it wasn't thought out enough. I mean, I still like running around, getting collectibles, and as far as I know, it's the only game that really focuses on free running and flow at this scale, but numerous long loading screens, the bad dashes, the stupid skill tree, the uninspired story, and the many small annoyances build this game up to be more frustrating than anything. It could have been great, and I could have really loved it, but instead I just feel so conflicted.